I pledge my allegiance for the purpose of progress, to a priest or a prophet, playing God in the process. Was I chasing convenience in a wave of disaster, where the captain's a captain and I'm a puppet to pastor? A worthless war, a curtain torn to take control of this ship. An end of shame, a broken vein to write redemption a script. A truthless gun, a dying sun to turn the tables we flipped. Turn the tables we flipped. Paint the beauty we split. 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 No, 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 no.
I don't get it, we're committed to sticks and stones. What's a vision if it's treasure to a person? I don't know. They don't get it, we're committed to sticks and stones. Undecided, but I'm trying still to love it, so it goes.
A worthless war, a curtain torn to take control of this ship. An end of shame, a broken vein to write redemption a script. A truthless gun, a dying sun to turn the tables we flipped. Turn the tables we flipped. Paint the beauty we split. Paint the beauty we split.
Good morning, and welcome to Forum 12E2. We're so happy that you're here. We're getting ready to get started, so please find your seat. And once you get there, you're going to notice that there is a connection card on that seat. Please fill that out with your name, phone number, school, and grade level. Once service is over, please put it in the bin that is over by the double doors that you entered in. You'll also notice on your connection card that there's a place to mark whether or not it's your first time. If it's your first time, come bring the connection card directly to myself or one of the other leaders. We'd love to get to know you and get you a free smoothie. And if you're not new, but you brought a friend with you, come bring the connection card up to us as well, because we'd love to get you and your friend a smoothie. On top of having Sunday service at 10:30, we also have youth group every Wednesday from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock here in the Youth Activity Center. We also use something called Remind to keep you guys up to date with things that might be happening in youth group, whether it be church events, youth events, or anything else that might be going on. The way to get connected is by texting at 12E2 to this number right here. Once again, we're so happy that you're here, and we can't wait to worship with you. So please stand as we sing a few songs before we listen to our sermon.
All right, let's stand and worship.
All my words fall short. I got nothing new. How could I express my hands, praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, but I've nothing else fit for a king except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah. So I throw up my hands, praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, but I've nothing else fit for a king except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah. Are you hurting and
much for this time of worship, and I just pray that you just speak to Noah today, and that we just remember to go out and just shine your light for the world. In your name, amen.
And go ahead and have a seat. Papers blew off before I was able to come up here, so I got to fix it all up. All right. Welcome back. We were outside last week, back inside with our AC. Now it's getting super hot. Yeah, dude, my room is... I apologize if you're here on Wednesday. I was not here because I was sick, and I slept for what felt like forever. But I was with you in spirit. I talked to Matt about it. Maybe I'll just start missing more often, and I just won't be here more often. Matt says no, but it was my dog, Shiloh. So, attached to my hip. But just kidding. Today, of a fall, looking at recap last week. Saul crowned king of the Israelites. And when they finally chose him as king because he saw these prophecies, and he knew him to be king, him to all of it, cast the lots to choose, and they finally got chosen, and he was nowhere to be found, hiding among. And he wasn't like this true king. He was kind of acting like a coward. He wasn't trusting his plan either. And at the end, we saw people come to deliver gifts to congratulate him on being crowned. There were some people who didn't believe in king, and they didn't bring him any gifts, but it said nothing. So he just let this happen. And so he's being a pushover. He isn't acting like a king should. And this trying to take over and overpower them. And so let's right into the passage point, because there's no fluff in this section this week. Last week we had like 50 verses, and there was 10 of them that were all about finding donkeys, but we don't have any of that this week. So we're going to jump in. Ammonite went up and besieged Jabesh Gilead, and all the men of Jabesh said to him, "Make a treaty with us, and we will be subject to you." But Nahash the Ammonite replied, "I will make a treaty with you only on the condition sets the scene, and he lets us know that Nahash means business. He's not here to mess around. He's not here to like, oh, I took over your little town. He's here for business. Something is Nahash's name, though. And when we look at the text, same word for the serpent that Adam and Eve back in Genesis. You know the story of Adam and Eve. The tree evil, and you can't eat from it. And they're like, all right, that's cool. Why not? You should eat from that tree. They eat, the whole thing happens. But Nahash is the same word used as a serpent. And when me and the only thing I could think about, Courageous, it's a Christian movie. I really enjoy it. Play it for you guys, but let me set the scene. So there's these two cops, and while they're getting ready to pick up this guy, busted him, we just need to take him down to jail. And they're like, all right, we can go do that, but they have their friend in the back of the cop car because there's not room for 3 people up. And so this guy named Javier, he's in the back seat. I think they call him Javi. He's in the back seat, and play that scene real quick. Maybe.
You heard of the Snake Kings?
The who?
The Snake Kings. You ever crossed them?
I ain't heard of no Snake Kings.
We got their leader in the back. If he tries to cut you or go for your throat, you yell, we'll stop the car.
Wait, hold on, man. I ain't getting in the back with no killer.
Just stay on your side. Don't look at him. Don't talk to him. You'll be fine. Martinez, you hurt this guy. I'll put you under the jail. You got it? Don't touch him. All right, get in.
Hey, hold on, man. I don't want to be in the car with no Snake King. Come on, man. Look, hey, they got a lot of room up there.
Get in the car. Stay on your side. We will protect you.
Here, let's roll with it. Let's go south. All you. All you.
Pierre is just some random.
Dispatch, this is 693C. We're 1095 en route to the jail. ETA 10 to 20 minutes.
Vamos a almorzar. Y me voy a comprar un pollo. Y una limonada.
Hey, man. Hey, what's he saying, man?
Hey, man, just don't talk to him. You stay on your side.
Oh, I totally messed it up. That was on me. Please go back. That was my fault.
You heard of the Snake Kings?
The who? The who?
The Snake Kings. You ever crossed them?
I ain't heard of car.
Stay on your side. We will protect you.
Here.
Batido.
Hey, man, hey, he's threatening me. Hey, I think he wants to kill me.
Just calm down. If he wanted to kill you, you'd be dead by now.
Hey, he's free! Hey, he's free! Hey, stop the car! Stop the car! Stop! Hey, stop the car! Stop the car! He's trying to kill me! Hey, stop the car! Let me out! Hey! Stop the car! Stop the car!
So that was, that's courageous. Great movie. Matt, I switched to white too. Great movie. Highly recommend it. But while I was talking about this and stuff with Andy, all I was thinking of was in the bag, like, sneaking, and the whole thing. So I'm sorry, I just wanted to show that. So we have Nahash, the Snake King, and he's going to take over the city of Jabesh Gilead. And the city of Jabesh Gilead is important to know as well, because if you remember last week, I mentioned there was something special about the tribe of Benjamin. So the tribe of Benjamin, they were super, super small, because in the book of Judges, there were some foreigners who came into town, and the tribe of Benjamin treated them very poorly, and they ended up dead. And when the other tribes caught word of this, there was a civil war within the tribe of Israel. And so the tribe of Benjamin was super, super small because they had come in and they had wiped out a lot of them. And so I'll read it. It's in Judges 21. And so it says, then they asked, which of the tribes of Israel failed to assemble for the Lord of Mizpah? They discovered that no one from Jabesh Gilead had come to the camp for the assembly. For when they counted the people, they found that none of the people from Jabesh Gilead were there. So the assembly sent 12,000 fighting men with instructions to go to Jabesh Gilead and put to the sword those living there, including the women and children. This is what you are to do, they said. Kill every male and every woman who is not a virgin. They found among the people living in Jabesh Gilead 400 young women who had never slept with a man. And they took them to the camp at Shiloh, Canaan. Then the whole assembly sent an offer of peace to the Benjamites at the rock of Rimmon. So the Benjamite returned at that time and were given the women of Jabesh Gilead who had been spared, but there were not enough for all of them. So we're not going to continue into the story, but it's important to know that a lot of the women that were from Jabesh Gilead are now in the tribe of Benjamin. So there's a good chance that Saul's mom or Saul's grandma was from Jabesh Gilead. So he has this attachment to it. This isn't just some random city. And if you want to know the rest of the story, how they got back up to size, you can continue reading Judges 21, but it's not important. And so keeping in mind that Nahash didn't come just to get more land for his kingdom, he wanted to crush Israel. He wanted to ruin them. He didn't like them. He wanted to oppress them, which is why he said he would only make a treaty with Israel if they gouge out their right eye, which is important because most fighters are right-handed, so they hold their shield in their left and their sword in their right, and so if they lost their right eye, they can no longer fight because they're not able to see out of their right eye because they lose their fighting eye. Also, losing one eye affects your depth perception, and so if you cover one eye and you try to catch something, it's super, super difficult because you don't have a good idea of how close or how far away something is. And so Nahash, the snake king, takes Jabesh Gilead, which Saul has a personal connection to, and wants to render them unable to fight, so they can't assist Israel in any more battles. And Jabesh is going to try and send for help to our king Saul, and we'll see what he does. So verse 3, the elders of Jabesh said to him, "Give us 7 days so we can send messengers throughout Israel. If no one comes to rescue us, we will surrender to you." When the messengers came to Gibeah of Saul and reported these terms to the people, they all wept aloud. Just then Saul was returning from the fields behind his oxen, and he asked, "What is wrong with everyone? Why are they weeping?" Then they repeated to him what the men of Jabesh said. So pause. It says Saul has returned from the fields. The Israelites wanted a king so bad. They have this whole grand ceremony, like, we're going to do this thing. We don't care. We want a king, blah, blah, blah. That they crowned a king, and then they realize, oh, snap. We don't have a palace. We don't have a capital city. We don't have a throne. We have no place for the king to go. So just go home. See you, Saul. And so he goes home. It's like, congrats on being king. Everyone, you're good with this? Yeah, we're good. We're good. All right, cool. Go home. And then he gets home and mom's like, you may be king of Israel, but you're not king of this household. Go take care of the fields. Go clean your room. And it's like grabbing the ear, like any mom would. I mean, it's this funny scene when you think about it, like, yay, I'm king. I'm just going to go back to work. And then he just goes back to work. He goes back and he works in the field. Like, could you imagine if we elected a president and it was like, hey, congrats, you've been elected by the people. You are now the president of the United States. Cool, man. I'm going to go finish my shift at McDonald's. We're cool. All right. And he just goes back to work. It's like at McDonald's and making the food. It's like, Mr. President, we're getting attacked. What should we do? I don't know, man. I'm just getting off my lunch shift. Can you, on my lunch break, can you come back in 3 hours when I'm done with my shift? That would be great. I mean, it's silly, but here we are. So Saul comes in from work, and they tell him what Jabesh has said and everything that's going on there. And it's important to note that Nahash gave them a week to send these messengers out, which is super generous. Because if you're going to take over a city, the last thing you're going to do is let them go get help. Like, all right, I took over your city, but I'm not actually going to take over it for another week, so, you have time to prepare. Just be ready. In a week, I'll be there. And then, and it might have been to go and strike fear in all of Israel, like, hey, Nahash is coming, he's taken over, because he had conquered several regions coming up to this, so it wasn't like they were next-door neighbors and he began. He had made his way across all these other cities, and so he's been on this for a while. And so in order to get to Jabesh, he has to do this campaign, and we're not really sure exactly why, but there's a good chance it's to strike fear in Israel, to let them know, hey, I'm coming, and I'm going to destroy your silly little king that you got. And it's weird that he'd leave them before taking their eyes, because if he took their eyes first, then that would be all that they had left. Get it? Because the left eye? No. Thank you, Aiden. I appreciate that. Someone laughed. So now we're going to see what Saul's response is. And so in verse 6, when Saul heard their words, the Spirit of God came powerfully upon him, and he burned with anger. He took a pair of oxen, cut them into pieces, and sent the pieces by messengers throughout Israel, proclaiming, "This is what will be done to the oxen of anyone who does not follow Saul and Samuel." Then the terror of the Lord fell on the people, and they came out together as one. So he responds as he should. He's not this coward hiding in the baggage. He's not the guy who's trying to run from his responsibilities. He's responding as he should. He responds with this anger and this frustration towards Nahash. And so he goes and he cuts up this oxen and he sends it out to all the tribes of Israel so that they all fall in line behind him and Samuel. But keep in mind that God is also on his side. He's not doing this by himself. He's doing it as a righteous man should. I mean, it says the Spirit of God came powerfully upon him. And then when the tribes, they get the pieces of this oxen that he sent out to them, the terror of the Lord falls on them. I mean, God is on his side. And this is an important note because there is such thing as righteous anger. And we're going to get into this in a little bit, but there are a lot of times where we get confused and we assume that any anger, anything that our heart would burn for is bad. But even Jesus, we even see Jesus get angry. In the last week of his life, Jesus enters into the temple and he sees that people have turned it into a market where they're selling birds and they're selling goats that people can sacrifice. And this temple, this holy place, has now been turned into this market. They call it a den of thieves. And so Jesus actually goes out and he makes this cord of 3 different strands, and he spends all his time, and he goes in the temple and he's hitting people, he's flipping tables because they've desecrated this holy place, and he's throwing people out. And so there's this such thing as a righteous anger, but that doesn't mean that all anger is righteous anger of, oh, well, if I can think of a reason why I should be angry, therefore it makes it okay. And we're going to get into it in a little bit, and so I want to jump back into Saul's anger here. And it is a righteous one. I mean, someone's taking over his people with the intention of crushing God's chosen people. And so the anger of the Lord comes upon him, and so he has to take action. And I always wonder what that feels like. Like, what does the anger of the Lord or the Spirit of God coming and I burn with anger? Because I've heard people I felt the Lord call me to do this. I felt the Lord call me to do this, or whatever it is. But I've never heard anyone the Spirit of the Lord came upon me, and I just went out and I punched him in the face, right? I've never heard that before. And I can only imagine that it's different than my passive-aggressive anger that I'm driving, and I'll be driving, and someone will make go across 4 lanes of traffic and all of this, and I'm like, who gave this guy a license? I'm assuming it's much different. And it's not the same thing, and I know I shouldn't do it, and I'm working on it, but I was just curious, what would that look like? And we see this example of it here. So Saul cuts up this oxen, and he sends it out to all of Israel. The Israel that has so many issues as a nation, whether it's this problem and this problem. I mean, you read the book of Judges, and it is not great. But they come together as one, and they unite together under Saul to help free the city of Jabesh Gilead from Nahash the snake king. And so in verse 8, we see what happens. When Saul mustered them at Bezek, the men of Israel numbered 300,000, and those of Judah 30,000. They told the messengers who had come, "Say to the men of Jabesh Gilead, by the time the sun is hot tomorrow, you will be rescued." When the messengers went and reported this to the men of Jabesh, they were elated. They said to the Ammonites, "Tomorrow we will surrender to you, and you can do to us whatever you like." The next day Saul separated his men into 3 divisions. During the last watch of the night, they broke into the camp of the Ammonites and slaughtered them until the heat of the day. Those who survived were scattered, so that no 2 of them were left together. So they get 330,000 men together to attack Jabesh, or attack the Ammonites who have taken over Jabesh. And they don't just take them down, but they destroy them. I mean, if this was a football game, it'd be 70-0 Israelites. I mean, they beat them so bad that when they were retreating, no 2 people were running together. I mean, they just scattered them. And this is a much different Saul than we've seen the past few weeks. The Saul that we've seen is the Saul of cowardice, the Saul that's a pushover, the Saul who seemed like he didn't want this. But now he's turned into Saul the protector, Saul the war chief, Saul the king. And he did it with God on his side, fighting his battles alongside him. And unlike last chapter, Saul obeys God. He bears God, he hears God, and he sticks to the plan and allows God's hand to guide him and take control of his actions, which leads to an Israelites' victory and freeing Jabesh Gilead. Saul's righteous anger has paid off, and this is what the Israelites wanted from a king. They wanted someone that they could unite under. They wanted someone who would lead them into battle. They wanted a king who was tall and strong, and they finally have what they want. And although this seems like it contradicts what Samuel said 2 weeks ago, where Samuel gave them this warning to the Israelites, and this king is going to do all these bad things, and we feel like here that this king is going to prove that warning wrong. And we're going to get into that in the coming weeks because Saul kind of gets away from him a little bit, but for now, Saul is a victor, and he is the king of Israel. And so we see how the Israelites react to this victory. The people then said to Samuel, maybe? There we go. The people then said to Samuel, "Who was it that asked, shall Saul reign over us? Turn these men over to us so that we may put them to death." But Saul said, "No one will be put to death today, for this day the Lord has rescued Israel." Then Samuel said to the people, "Come, let us go to Gilgal, and there renew the kingship." So all the people went to Gilgal, and made Saul king in the presence of the Lord. There they sacrificed fellowship offerings before the Lord. And Saul and all the Israelites held a great celebration. So remember those guys we talked about last week? They didn't bring Saul any gifts because they're like, this guy's not going to be king. He's hiding in the baggage. I mean, they have so much faith in Saul because he led them to this victory that they want to just start killing everybody who said anything bad about him. Which is ridiculous because Saul was the one that was hiding in the baggage. The one that was hiding away from all his responsibilities. And truthfully, I don't blame them for not standing behind Saul. I mean, like, if there was, here's your leader, here's your king, and he's hiding on the baggage, like, this isn't someone you're like, yeah, here's my king, like, you'd be like, this guy isn't fit to rule. And Saul would have every reason to say, yeah, those guys didn't stand behind me, so get rid of them. But he stands up for them. He gives the glory back to God like a true servant, like a true follower of God. And so he goes to this place called Gilgal, he gets fully affirmed as king. And we look at this story and we say, well, there's no way that this is all going to go wrong. Saul's a man of God. They're winning. This is what they want. God chose him. Saul seems like this good leader. He's going to give glory to God all of his days. And in this passage, he does a lot of good, and he is a good servant. But after he begins to see success, and he begins to leave someone important out of all his decisions, that person is God. But we look at this story, and we look at the successes of Saul, and we see how his heart burned for the people of Jabesh Gilead. And we see this side of Saul, which is a side of this righteous anger, of doing what's right, standing up for his people. And we ask the question, well, what does this righteous anger look like? Is it getting angry at people and screaming at them if I don't believe some more things? Is it getting so worked up over people who are being oppressed and the things that are going wrong in this world? Is it starting a fight over someone who's been mean to you, or starting a fight with them, or anything like that? And truth be told, none of us in this room will ever be in a situation like Saul was. No one's going to have a situation where someone's going to come from a messenger from Madeira and is like, hey, there's this foreign nation that's taking over Madeira. We need you to, muster everyone in California and go free the city of Madeira. It's not this, this anger that needs to go and like wipe out a nation or anything like that. But our heart should burn with a righteous but a loving anger for people who don't know Jesus yet. It's not a screaming anger that intends harm or to scare anybody or intend to enact fear, but an anger that wants to see the love of Jesus. Have you ever tried to explain something to a friend and they're not getting it? Like maybe you're helping them with homework, or you're explaining an idea, or if you're me, you're like explaining why the Chargers are the best team, and you're explaining it, and you're explaining it, and you're explaining it, and they're not getting it. And you're getting frustrated with the situation, and you're not mad at them, but you're just like, why can't you understand this? This is so easy. It's, A plus B, equals C. It's super, super easy. And you're not mad at them, but you're just frustrated because you want them to understand. You want them to see it. And sometimes our heart burns for these wrong things. Well, that teacher just doesn't like me, and I don't like them, and so I'm not going to give them the respect. Well, that friend, they just keep starting drama, and I hate them. Oh, I don't like that launch monitor or AD or whoever it is, or oh, my parents, they're so overbearing, or whatever it is. And then when you guys continue to grow up, or maybe know it now, and you get into the world of politics, you're starting to get in the world of the red versus blue, or Republicans versus Democrats, pro-life, pro-choice, everything in between, everything that is just garbage. And we're ready to go to war at any given moment for any of those subjects. We're ready to send that mean text or say that mean thing to people who we assume deserve it. Our heart burns with this anger and rage because you don't understand, Noah. They're going to get what's coming to them. They deserve every little bit of this text or what I'm going to say to them or whatever is about to happen. They deserve it. And here's the deal. When we look at all the things that we can be angry at in this world, the list can go on forever and ever and ever. We can have a whole sermon on all the injustices in the world of like, here's this organization that helps fight this. Here's this that fights this. It can go on forever and ever and ever. But here's the deal. We have so many people in this world who want to just scream. They want to yell. They want to enact fear in all of these people. People want to do all these crazy things, stand outside all these different buildings and tell people why they're wrong. They're going to yell. They're going to scream. They're going to throw stuff at them and hold their angry signs. They want to scare people. They want to cause fear. But we are called to be different. We are called to love. Jesus could have screamed. Jesus could have yelled at all of the injustices that are in the world. Jesus could have led a rebellion to overthrow the Pharisees, and when he's standing there getting insults hurled at him and stuff like that, said, no, this is wrong. You guys don't understand. He could have overthrown the Pharisees and Pilate and all the guys who wanted to crucify him and been here for the rest of his life. But he didn't. He loved. He loved the broken. He loved the sinners. He loved you. He loved me. He loved everyone outside this building. Yeah, everybody. So before you send that text, or before you go and you scream at that person and say, well, but they deserve it. They deserve what's coming to them. You don't understand the drama that they've caused. You don't understand the hurt and pain that they've caused. I want you to consider this. So did you. You deserved it as well. You deserve the pain. You deserve the suffering of our sin, the one that Jesus died for. You deserved hell. You deserved eternal suffering. And yet Christ died so that you didn't have to suffer. So you could live this life of love. So you could live this life with him. And so to recap it all, and this is your first fill in the blank, the heart of a follower is a heart that burns. The heart of a follower is a heart that burns. It's one that burns not because we see all the injustices in the world, but because it burns for the people who don't yet know Jesus. It's a heart that burns for people because you just want them to know the love of Christ. Because we can go out and we could get this room and we can go do marches and like the protests where we're walking in the street with the angry signs, but that's not going to do anything. We can yell at people and say why they're wrong and get all worked up over these silly little trivial things, but at the end of the day, when we're sitting there with our family or we're having a birthday and family's coming over, our heart's not burning for the people around us who yet know Jesus. But we'll get behind our friend who's like, yeah, so-and-so said this. And yet we go, but they don't know Jesus either. It's easy to get worked up over the little things. And so our last fill in the blank is also our challenge question for the week. And I want you to think about it. And if you need to, write it down, write it on your mirror, whatever you need. What does my heart burn for? What does my heart burn for? When me and Andy were meeting on Monday, we were talking about our heart burning for different things, and he shared a story where the power outlet behind his dishwasher went out. So we called the insurance company, and they came out, and he paid $100 so they can come and diagnose the problem. Like, oh, well, there's an issue with the power line somewhere in there, so what you're going to need to do is call an electrical company out. They have to run a new wire through the wall and stuff. And he's like, great. When can we schedule that? Like, ooh, that's not in your contract, that's all on you. And he's like, oh, okay. Well, since you can't take care of the problem, do I get a refund for the $100 that you took from me? And they're like, no, because we diagnosed the problem. He's like, well, that's not fair. I paid you $100 so you could diagnose and fix. Like, well, and the whole time he's in the text chat on his computer, and he's just typing things, and he's, some letters are capitalized. He's typing super hard. You know when you get angry and you're like, all of a sudden you're typing really hard on your laptop? And he's getting super angry, and his heart's just burning, and he's frustrated. And as he's telling me the story, I'm remembering all the times that I've had to deal with insurance and all the times that they've said, well, you can't do that. Well, that we technically don't cover that, and this is how this works. And it's just, like, as I'm getting worked up to it, I want to, right? My heart burns for it. It's frustrated. But then we take a step back, and we go, while we were texting and we were saying, capitalizing the letters and yelling at that person, what happens after that interaction? It frustrates that person, and while she's driving on the road, she cuts someone off, and then that person goes home and yells at her husband, right? Snaps at her kids. It creates this effect because my heart burns for over $100, when in reality, if I handle this with grace and love, maybe nothing will happen. Or maybe I can show the love of Jesus. And although although he wouldn't be preaching the gospel before he talks about the contract, right? It's how we handle the situation. Our heart burns because we want people to know Jesus. Our heart burns because we want to be people who are set apart from this world. We want to be people who are known for our love. Let us be people of love who use our righteous anger not to push people away from Jesus, but to encourage us to show as many people Jesus as we can. From the people who are causing harm in the world to the people who we love the most, to the people in our family, to the people we don't know yet. Let's be a people of love so we can show the love of Jesus. And our heart burns not for all the injustices, although they're wrong, but so we can show love through that. Our heart burns because we want to know Jesus. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day, Lord. Thank you for who you are, Lord, because you are a person of love. Lord, I pray that as we go out in this world and we get all caught up in all the issues of this world and all the random garbage that's in our lives, Lord, I pray that we can continue to show love for you. I pray that we can continue to show love through the drama, through all the stresses, through all school, home life, friend life, whatever it may be, Lord. And when our heart burns with anger, we take a step back and say, am I showing the love of Jesus right now? Lord, help us be people where our hearts burn to show the love of Jesus and the people who have not yet known you yet, the people who are lost, the people who haven't heard about your love yet. Lord, let us be followers and disciples so we can continue to be lights for you, building the kingdom, not to glorify ourselves or glorify the church, but to glorify you, Lord, because we know how good you are. So, Lord, we love you and we praise you. In your name, amen. All right, connection cards in the box, and I will be here Wednesday, so I'll see you guys on Wednesday. Same.